Welcome to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast.
Every week, they talk about the Vancouver Canucks with a fair amount of nonsense thrown in.
Sure, they're never the first with the news, nor the best connected, and definitely more off the rails than on.
But they've been talking puck the longest, and that counts for something, right?
So strap in for the longest running, best mediocre Canucks hockey podcast.
It's C4 with Chris and Anna.
Hi, it's me, it's Chris. There's Anna over there through the computer, the box full of spirits, or whatever it is.
On this scary internet.
Mm-hmm. It's a series of tubes.
Yes, that's what I believe. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, even though I've had it explained many times, I have no idea how the internet works, so. Apart from miracles, wizards. Elves, gremlins.
And wizards.
Yeah,
wizards. How you doing, Anna? It's been a couple weeks.
It's been a couple weeks. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, kind of adjusting the normal Vancouver spring where it can't decide whether it's midsummer or midwinter.
Mm-hmm.
The usual.
Well, no, it's we don't get the midwinter experience.
No, but like
I'm not going to deny it gets cold, but
and rainy and gray.
Midwinter can get
frigid. Sure, but like it's spring is always crazy, but. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're recording Sunday. Saturday.
All the news that's going to break is tomorrow.
I know. Yeah, including Baby Canucks series. So we'll see. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Saturday was so sunny. It was like...
It was a very nice day.
It was beautiful. It was like genuinely hot. Mm-hmm. T-shirt, shorts weather. And today's been actually decent, better than I thought it was going to be. But it's going to rain tomorrow, of course.
Yeah. Did you have your guns out yesterday? With
My guns? My non-existent guns. Yeah, I do not need a license for these guns.
Yeah, the sun's out, guns out. My daughter asked me, what does that mean? I'm like, oh, it's just like the thought being that when the sun's out, you'll have your like short sleeves or sleeveless shirts.
I feel like of the questions she has asked, this is not that inappropriate to explain.
No, not at all. But like she could not understand the logic to the statement. Like, why would arms be called guns? Well, it's not arms. It's more like your muscles and your biceps. Why are those? Well, like I'm trying to explain it in terms I thought that would
makes sense.
Resonate. Then I'm now leveling it like, well, it's muscles within the bicep and tricep, like sort of upper arm, blah blah blah, and whatever. You're just silly. And
I mean, she's not wrong.
No, right? It's hard to argue. Oh, but yeah, no, it's been an eventful-ish 2 weeks if you happen to be a fan of the Vancouver Canucks. It's been an eventful 2 weeks-ish if you're a fan of the C4 Canucks podcast. And it's been an eventful 2 weeks-ish for me, who's still sorting stuff out behind the scenes with our former network /host / who knows who they are. They don't want to reply to me. To the point where there are a handful of podcast providers, which you're not listening to the show on, I don't think, because they refuse to update the feed, who we're getting to the point where I may have to file a copyright claim on ourselves to sort out.
That's crazy. That's crazy boots.
But I do want to give a shout out to a friend of the show, Sean. So if you recall, and I mean, Annie, you probably do. Last week we were talking about how now that we're fully independent, these costs are, coming out of your pocket and mine, and with the stress, everything that's we're going through to sort this out.
Yeah.
And Sean decided that you and I were deserving of a few pints. I said points. Pints.
I mean, that's closer to how Sean says it, being of Irish extraction.
He went to buymeacoffee.com/C4 podcast. Buy me a coffee, or as Anna and I like to call it,
buy me a pint.
And he said, hi, Chris and Anna, great to hear you back up and running after all the uncertainty, and I hope you managed to get control of your back catalog. Don't worry about my sticker. You've got more important things to sort out. Anyway, just thought I'd lob in for a few pints to celebrate the new platform, and hi to Anna's mom. First of all, I love that saying hi to your mom, hi Anna's mom, is a thing.
Yeah. I mean, they are compatriots, but they have not met as far as I'm aware.
I think Sean and your mom have to meet at some point.
They do. I mean, like, Sean's from Dublin. We do, and half our family is from Dublin, even though we never actually say that. We say we're from Tipperary, but my granddad's family is from Dublin. We just don't admit that out loud. So, yeah, they have stuff in common already.
Yeah. But no, thanks, Sean, for throwing that pint money our way. At some point in time, Anna and I will find a way to get together. We will take picture proof that it occurs.
Yes.
We get together a few times over the course of the season. Usually I'm inviting you out to the Whitecaps to watch them. You're, standing up to the ignorance that sit around me on occasion.
Yes, that has happened.
It is a better group around me. Most are now season ticket holders.
Yes, and it's mainly very sweet, eager kids, to be fair. But
yeah. Well, it's a family zone, right? It's just that on occasion the family zone doesn't quite sell out. And the ignoramuses, or is it ignoramusi? I don't know what the plural of an ignoramus is.
I don't know anything about Latin. Unlike my grandma who went to Latin Mass today.
Oh.
Yeah. Irish Catholics. There you go.
Anyhow, and it's, stands out for them. So, or to them, not for them, to them. So yeah, we do get together with Christmas. So we'll get together and spend those pints. The Canucks, what did they do since we last recorded? They've hired a coach. They searched far and wide. We're going to get into who they eventually found through their exhaustive search. They've signed a few players, one of which was announced within minutes of announcing the coach, which may not be read into.
Yeah.
Baby Canucks are still in the playoffs as we are talking.
Yes.
NHL playoffs are still happening. World Championships wrapped up. And I will let you know now, we will be getting into the F word again this episode. I do want to provide a trigger warning. We will provide the same warning after Rewind. We are going to be talking about the sexual assault case that is still ongoing. There have been some developments since we last spoke, so we'll get into it. And there is a direct correlation to the Vancouver Canucks now based on news in the last 2 weeks. So with all that, let's dive into Rewind. When we spoke last, there was some thought that the Vancouver Canucks needed to find a coach. They had a few names in mind. They were going to scratch the surface, maybe kick a few cans. I don't think they ever said they were going to search far and wide. That was the...
Who had that line before?
Yeah, we did. That was when Francesco got in front of the media after relieving Jim Benning in the front office of their duties. We're going to search far and wide. They brought in the Steamer as the caretaker.
Yeah.
Stan got some stuff done, and 2 days later, Stan was no longer interim because they searched far and wide and brought in Jim Rutherford, who they already had searched and found.
Yes, indeed. So, yes, that is all to say that the new coach of the Vancouver Canucks is Adam Foote.
Yes, they went real far.
Coach.
Just down the hall,
yes.
To the right.
I mean...
I don't know how wide that search route was, but it's definitely...
Yeah, I mean, well, now they have a divider down the hallway, thanks to John Tortorella, so maybe they had to go around.
Before we talk about Adam Foote as the new head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, it's interesting that the scuttlebutt prior to his hiring was that ownership had gone to the front office and said, you can pay for a coach or you can pay for a roster. You can't pay for both. And you and I had agreed that they weren't going to pay for the coach, right? You can't be a competitive playoff team, which is what the family wants this team to be. Well, you can, but not the way the Canucks do it, yes. Being budget. So we knew we were going to get a value head coach. And I want to say value in the optimistic sense, where you get good value, not in the pejorative sense that it is poor value.
Right. But it's safe to say he's not the most expensive option on the market, whereas re-upping...
There was probably some cheaper options, let's be honest.
Yes.
There were a few of the names out there. The thought was they would have signed for anything just to get that job and frankly use the Vancouver Canucks as a potential stepping stone to something greater.
Well, yes. And literally Adam Foote admitted this in a press conference that he thought he was following Rick Tocchet until the offer of the head coach came up. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've got Adam Foote.
Yeah. So, pros and cons.
Well, okay. He knows the roster.
Tick.
Okay.
The roster knows him.
Tick. Quinn Hughes allegedly likes the guy.
Yes, and I don't think Quinn Hughes will go out of his way to shower with him with compliments as he did during the season. Out of nowhere, because Quinn Hughes just is a non-BS guy / he doesn't really talk much.
I just don't know how. Like, I understand that Tocchet leaving wasn't necessarily the Canucks' decision. Like, there was a couple articles I read that suggested the Vancouver Canucks, because they had the opportunity to keep Tocchet an additional season, and chose not to, decided to go in a different direction. No, they actually, and I have to give them credit, quite smartly, didn't want to keep someone who didn't want to be here around, and allowed him the opportunity to explore, which Rick chose to do. Yeah, right. Like,
And it's very much more status quo higher for sure.
Yeah, I referred to it, talking to one of my neighbors, as talk light. And I'm not suggesting that in a pejorative sense. I think we're going to see Adam Foote present a very similar style to what we were getting out of Rick Tocchet. We don't know who his coaches will be, his associate, his assistant, his whatever. We just know Adams is here. And I guess we'll figure that out when they figure it out, or...
Yeah, and what I would have loved to hear, and interestingly, very quick sidebar that I heard, I was listening to Too Many Men podcast, and they were saying that the world of difference between listening to Canucks media and Leafs media after give tough press conferences, and Canucks media really know how to do that and ask the tough questions. But one thing I wanted to hear was Adam Foote kind of emphasized his good relationship and how he joke with Quinn Hughes, etc. And I just want to know how he's going to deal with Quinn, but also the rest of the team as a head coach, where you have to be you can't be as buddy-buddy with the players at all. That's definitely not your role. That's not going to work. And I don't think Rick Tocchet ever did that, so I would have liked to hear more of his perspective on that.
Yeah. Were you surprised that Adam Foote got the job so quick? We recorded, and 3 days later, the Vancouver Canucks were announcing a coach. We had sort of thought that maybe if they were going to consider Manny Malhotra, they would wait until such time as the baby Canucks were done.
Yeah.
Can't wait that long, obviously, if you've got other guys in the mix, because they potentially move on to other places. But it just occurred to me that maybe they'd been doing interviews the minute after Tocchet told them he was done. I want to say I saw Friedman talking about how they had, the day before, they have a short list.
Yeah.
Well,
it turns out
that was a pretty short list.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised only because of, mainly that, sort of hearing that it was being narrowed down rather than they'd made a decision. As far as Manny goes, we obviously talked about him being an interesting hire, and he's obviously got a lot of NHL experience and some head coaching experience, and he's obviously doing very well in Abbotsford, but the potential for that being a distraction, because we hope that the Baby Canucks season does not end today as you're hearing this Monday, but maybe it is. It's hard because obviously they want to get a plan in place. The scouting meetings have started prior to the draft, and you need the head coach's input on that. Even though they're not making the final decisions, you would think that Adam Foote will get some input there. Yeah, it did surprise me, but it does scream, or at least whisper, stopgap coach. Let's see how this goes. He has the only head coaching experience he has did not go well, right? Kelowna were not happy with him
when
as a
you
coach.
say it did not go well, the Kelowna Rockets, who are a WHL franchise, so this is a Canadian Hockey League junior hockey franchise, they they let him go mid-season when the team was winning.
I mean, that doesn't bode well, does it?
No, like, I obviously something was up. Now, I'm not suggesting any malfeasance on the end of Adam Foote, like,
but more that they generally didn't like him.
You know, it's just unusual when a coach is having success and is exited. And it's not like he had, you know, and we've seen this in the past where, you know, coaches will sort of, they don't have the success that was sort of expected and might they be exited. No, by all accounts, he was doing what was expected, and his dismissal came as a complete surprise. But then that may not have had anything to do with Adam Foote. It could have been a personality issue because the CHL franchises have ownership groups of themselves. Like, and in junior hockey, I mean, I was going to say in junior hockey, ownership's actually more involved. Here we are talking about the Vancouver Canucks. So what do I know?
Yeah. So we don't know the full story, but yeah, like it doesn't bode that well. So,
but
yeah,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here in saying this, but I would imagine you and I hope he succeeds because success from Adam Foote means hopefully success from the Vancouver Canucks.
And like key to that is Quinn, and it's just like we've said over and over again, Quinn's not staying for a rebuild, so
yeah,
we better be pointed in a good direction this year.
Yeah, well, and if you're keeping score of the front office and the head coach and contracts and all that, suffice to say, everything comes to a head when Quinn's contract is due, and
yes, in every single way.
If it does not go well, and there is a thought that Quinn exits, there is a good chance that that might be the impetus to blowing everything up, which has never really occurred here in Vancouver during the family era.
I mean, we say
I'm not advocating.
No,
for
I know,
I
but
don't
like
want that to happen. But
we say, like, I was gonna say it's got to, hasn't it? But
well, if you
but
don't,
then,
there's no turning it back.
But then,
because you're blowing up your front office, you're blowing up your coaching staff,
But if Quinn leaves, that's what you. No, I'm saying if Quinn leaves, that's it. Like, like you're blowing up the franchise one way or another, so you may as well.
Yeah, but let's not awfulize.
Yes.
Okay.
Because there was good news. The guy
hasn't even coached a game as head coach of the Vancouver Canucks yet, and we're already fast forwarding a couple of seasons. So yeah, within hours of the news breaking that Adam Foote was named the 22nd head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, the Canucks announced they had agreed to terms with Tom Willander, who was apparently a couple $100,000 apart in negotiations between team and player, which in the grand scheme of NHL dollars, that's like pocket change. But the hot rumor that Rick Dhaliwal was kind enough to share, and this actually came through Tom's advisor. Is he like?
Well, he's
now agent.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know how that works because it's literally like you're not allowed one before.
But then you can have one the moment after. Anyhow, the point is,
anyway,
the deal happened quick. It was like, oh yeah, no, it came together the first thing this morning, late last night, over the course of a couple of hours.
And when Dhaliwal says something, unlike other insiders, quote unquote, you can probably trust it.
Yeah, so there was some suggestion that the Vancouver Canucks knew that there was going to be an unsettled fan base. Or at least a portion of it with the signing of Adam Foote.
When is the Canucks fan base not unsettled? But yes, please go on.
And needed some additional news to help calm nerves or hype people. I don't know. I mean, Willander signing a deal with the Vancouver Canucks is a good thing.
Yes.
Having a head coach, also a good thing. Just happened to be that the two things happened within, at least announced within hours, and deals potentially.
And it was
in the same amount of time.
Absolutely wild to me that I got a promotional email from the Canucks within minutes of the Willander announcement. It was just like, really? That's your moment to capitalize on, you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to capitalize on something because it's a long off season, and you've had a plethora of not so positive news leading up to that big Tuesday when these two announcements came out. The Vancouver Canucks have actually signed another player in the time since we recorded. Anri Ravinskis, which I've probably brutalized his name. So
it was just as good as I was going for.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know.
He's also been signed to a 2-year entry-level contract. Cool.
Yeah. We'll see.
Willander was the only one that I can even suggest I had any inkling was a thing. So,
yeah.
Shows you how big of a fan I happen to be of the Vancouver Canucks.
I mean, it's Europe. Like, that's such a generalization. I literally hate when people do that usually. But, yeah, it's hard to know about every single player. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Vancouver Canucks still have a first-round draft pick.
Technically.
What do you think the odds are that they actually put that pick to use in the draft?
Well, they're going to put it to use in the draft, I believe. Yes. Do I think they're going to step on stage with that pick?
No, is there are they doing a stage this year? Isn't this year the one where it's...
Oh, is it the last one?
The remote ones?
Is it the last one? I think it might be the last remote. You might be right. Because they are re-centralizing, which is the funniest term ever. Re-centralizing the draft. Yeah, okay.
Teams stay at home and, it'll be all video feed and stuff like that. I don't know. First of all, a little off the rails here. Have you ever watched the NFL draft?
No.
So the reason why I ask is the NFL draft teams, like, first of all, if you watch the movie Draft Day, that sort of sets up how the structure is. Teams are all in their facilities. They might have a representative, but it's all in a centralized location. And in the past, they were in always in New York. And in the last few years, they've gone to different sort of cities. So in like Detroit, they'd set up in a parking lot with a stage. When they were in Green Bay, they were in a parking lot with a stage.
Wait, but are the draftees, draft picks, are they there?
No.
Okay,
some might be, but most will be remote, and they'll have like cameras set up in there.
So I have seen an episode of the show Party Down, which was set at a NFL draft party. So I have seen that. But
I kind of suspect the NHL is looking at what the NFL does and says, we can do that.
But the thing is, so they got tired of sending people to this one location. They thought it was too much money, etc. And then COVID happened and they used that as an excuse to put everything online. That was boring as hell and took even longer.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, let's re-centralize it. But yeah.
Now they're uncentralizing the re-centralization.
I don't know.
Anyhow. Vancouver Canucks will be active at the draft.
Yes. I do feel sorry. Like, they've started to release the sort of videos. How we know that the scouting teams are meeting is because Canucks have released videos. Funniest thing ever, like listening to Patrick Allvin's opening speech, because it's just like Jim Rutherford just talks and talks and talks and far too honest about everything. And then Patrick Allvin talks and talks and talks and says nothing. Literally, those videos were him saying nothing. 100%. If I was a scout, I'd just be like, what the hell was the point of that?
Well, no, in fairness, I think it's how the two, like, Jim Rutherford doesn't have an off switch.
Yeah.
Allvin doesn't necessarily have an on. Everything he says is through a filter. But I would imagine that when the cameras are not present, I would imagine Allvin probably is more like Jim. I'm not going to say he'll ever be Jim Rutherford, but I kind of feel that Allvin may be a little more open.
I mean, I'm sure he is more open.
Whereas Jim, the filter hasn't been replaced in years.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like Patrick Allvin is that personality. But yes, we got to see friend of the show, Ryan Beach, front and center. He always manages to get himself
on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I bet you he can't even reply to us.
Yeah, he's very secretive squirrel. But he always managed to get his face in all the videos, which I find very funny.
I wonder if we were to ask friend of the show, Chris Faber, to join us. There's another Canucks employee. I bet you he can't reply to us either.
Probably not.
Yeah.
He's got his own podcast.
Well, yeah, through the organization. On that note, we're not trying to knock Ryan or Chris here. The Vancouver Canucks are notorious when it comes to how media, and we're not media. We don't even pretend to be media. Like, that's not what we're trying to say.
I think Chris does a good job on his podcast of humanizing the players, but I wouldn't say you get a lot of insight.
No,
and which is not on Chris, it's on Canucks.
There's someone up above who,
saying,
looks at everything.
Don't say that.
Nope.
We're crossing that out. Yeah.
Oh, man. Anyhow, so yeah, we'll be back in a couple of weeks, and who knows what news will break on Tuesday. What else? NHL playoffs are still happening. If you happen to be a Leafs fan, I mean, okay, so you and I as Canucks fans, we poke fun at the Leafs, and Leafs fans will be like, when was the last time you made the playoffs? Fair point. Statistically, though,
yes.
I can't remember I think it's like the last 10 years, the Vancouver Canucks have won more playoff rounds than Maple Leafs have, and the Vancouver Canucks have made the playoffs twice.
Twice. And in the Leafs 9 that they have made consecutively, Canucks have won one more series. Do you know who's also won more series? Not in the last 9 years, but overall, Buffalo.
Oh, no doubt.
And there must be some restriction on that fact, but that's so funny to me.
Yeah, so the Maple Leafs, they
suck at Game 7. They really do.
Gosh. And if you didn't see the image in the sort of post playoffs, we're out off season press conference, it was like, no, I don't remember what the word was. It's like, no heart, funny. No hustle, no winning or something like that.
Because they used full stops instead of commas. It was just no grit. No heart, no results, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It was too funny.
Oh, anyhow.
But yes,
Jets are out too.
Yeah, which sucks. And obviously, Mark Scheifele, brutal. His dad passing away
the
hours
day before that game, and then he scored. So Mark Scheifele scores the first goal for the Jets. Game goes back and forth, takes a late penalty in the third period.
Yeah, and then he's in the box when they lose.
When they in overtime. And
it's just brutal, but
I'm not a Jets fan, but I felt horrible just as a human. I can't begin to imagine everything that he had been through. And then...
And absolutely awful. And I think what you should focus on instead, because one, that he had to take that penalty, because that was not just a penalty. If the refs were calling that game 100% correctly, that would be a penalty shot, in my opinion. And there's no way they would call it that way. But, that's how desperate the move was. So he had to do it. So I wouldn't fault Mark Scheifele for that. I do think it was very cool to see the Stars fans coming together and raising a whole bunch of money for Mark Scheifele's, foundation and the Winnipeg Jets Foundation. So I thought that was very cool.
Let's see what else. Washington Capitals, they're done. Yeah. The Hurricanes can't win games in the, third round.
Yes, they may be done by the time you listen to this podcast, if you're listening to it late Monday night.
Dallas apparently can't win against the Oilers.
Yeah.
This actually is, we're premature. Nothing's been determined yet.
But they're 2-1 down.
If this does go to a Panthers-Oilers Stanley Cup final,
again,
do you think the Oilers, so if you had asked me, what are the Oilers missing? I'd say it was goaltending.
And even, you would say that they were light on defense too.
Yeah. But... it just, if you would ask me this, it's a shame that they're lacking a goaltender to win the cup. Now they're getting adequate goaltending, and I say adequate, let's be honest, they're winning, so the goaltending is sufficient.
Yeah, and I will say I've been the biggest Stuart Skinner hater over time, and I still don't think he is a very good goalie, but he is a goalie for big moments, and at the moment, that's enough, right?
Yeah. But are the Oilers going to be able to overcome the machine that is the Florida Panthers. Like the fact that the Florida Panthers have like Brad Marchand eating a DQ blizzard,
which made me want Blizzard so bad.
Like, first of all, I do not like Brad Marchand
at all.
I hate him. And I hate that this playoff series and his play with the Florida Panthers has me wanting a Brad Marchand on the Vancouver Canucks.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say things you don't mean.
No, but this is the thing. That's what I'm hating about this is I'm looking at what he's doing. Like he's fulfilling the role that he was brought in to do.
He's just very good at what he does, which is be a good player, but he's also very good at being an a-hole, so...
But, every team needs one. Like, look at some of the more successful Vancouver Canucks teams. We've had some pretty good a-holes on our team.
Yeah, and there are a-holes, right? Like...
Well, exactly, which makes it even better.
Maxim Lafayette, Alex Burrows...
Yeah, our kind of a-holes.
Kiefer Sherwood is the funniest one, I guess.
Is he really an a-hole, though?
But he plays like one.
Well, not like okay. So, based on the code, I don't think he does. Like, he is the proper a-hole has a degree in the dark arts that they can.
And I do
rely on every once in a while. Kiefer is just too honest of a player.
Yeah, maybe, but he is
like I'm not suggesting he's fun to play against.
He throws down. He is a pass. Like that's literally why the Canucks signed him, and he is the most physical player in the league. You could argue.
No, and I'm not trying to knock him. Like you need Kiefers. It's just I don't know if Kiefer is of the.
He's not like he's not going to bite anyone
sort of
or lick anyone.
The dark arts part doesn't seem to be the piece that Kiefer relies most on.
Yeah.
Regardless. Who do you think wins Stanley Cup between the Oilers and the Panthers? Because it is arguably possible by the time we record our next show, a decision has been made. I mean, it's unlikely, but it's 2 weeks from now, and a lot can happen.
If it comes down to Oilers Panthers, I say Panthers.
Yeah, I say Panthers too.
If Dallas manages to turn this series around, I say Dallas.
Do you think Dallas turns the series around? I know they're not down significantly.
I think it's likely they don't, but if it gets to 6, then 100%. If it gets to 6 games, if it goes to 7 games, Dallas are winning the cup. Well,
if it gets to 6, Dallas has to win.
Yeah.
But
I
hear what you're saying.
But Dallas, if it gets to 7 games in the Western Conference Finals, Dallas win the cup.
Okay.
And I've said Dallas are winning the cup for a while, so it would just make me look better, and I would prefer to see a team like Dallas win.
Yeah.
But, I still think it is more likely that Oilers keep rolling.
Okay. World Championships are done. The United States have won their first ever World Championship
What a good news story.
Connor Garland, played out of his mind.
He's the same size as the trophy.
Almost. Canada, not so hot. I think, was it Denmark beat him? Knock him out of medal contention.
Aren't they evil in one of the Mighty Ducks movies?
Denmark? Iceland.
Oh.
Which...
they're not the villains in Cool Runnings either, right? That's the Swiss.
Yes, I think the Swiss. Yeah, no, I know in Mighty Ducks it's Iceland. So if you watch that Mighty Ducks movie, Canada is like
all of them.
a non-entity in international ice hockey. It's the
Do you think that was a copyright thing?
Iceland. I don't know.
Hockey Canada getting too litigious?
No, I don't. I honestly think it had everything to do with the folks at Disney marketing the movie.
Right. Sure. Okay. I can see that. Canada's going to watch it anyway. That's a hockey movie.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, whatever. The point is, the United States beat Iceland for.
And the point is,
fame.
That by far the superior hockey movie is Miracle Alaska.
Not Miracle.
Oh, Mystery Alaska. Sorry,
You combined Miracle. I actually thought Miracle was a decent movie.
It is a decent movie, but the story isn't.
Historic events.
Yeah, but there's just so much male hockey grossness in it that I.
No, I'm not. But I thought it was
Mystery Alaska.
Mystery Alaska is good times.
You know what's even funnier? The fact I got the movie wrong when I am have my Mystery Alaska hockey sweatshirt.
Horrible fan. Yeah, I didn't watch much of the World Championships. In
watched
fact,
none.
that's a lie. I watched at most highlights.
Yeah.
When they happened to come on, like,
I watched some
Sports
clips.
Center or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad Connor Garland and Drew O'Connor had fun. And I'm glad Sydney...
Marcus Pettersson had fun.
Yeah. And Sidney Crosby and got to babysit Macklin Celebrini for a while.
Yeah. So anyhow, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Who knows what the Vancouver Canucks are going to drop news-wise in a couple of days, and we'll just sit on it because off-season schedule.
That's the off-season.
Yeah, totally. Before we take ourselves a break, and I tell you that you're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris, just a note again, we are about to go into the F word. The F word, as a trigger warning, has the topic of sexual assault, which we can appreciate that some of our listeners may not be in a position to listen to. If you are deciding to leave the show at this point, we'll see you in 2 weeks. You know where to find us, our website, c4podcast.com and everything. But we are going to take ourselves a short break before we dive in. Again, you're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris.
He liked to say the F word.
Well, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't. You, out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
A lot has occurred with that trial since we last recorded. And I don't mean that in the sense that the trial has made a lot of progress.
No, these trials are kind of long and...
Yeah, they're arduous. But what has transpired to sort of catch our listeners up? A mistrial was not declared in the second trial. This is actually the second. The first was put in the mistrial. I want to say it was immediately after jury selection, but then they did have prospective jurors to then select from, and then this is now the quote-unquote the second trial.
Which is proceeding judge
alone,
alone.
as the jurors have been discharged. With the discharge of the jury, the publication bans that were in place regarding the initial mistrial and why the jury was discharged in this trial relate to the same member of the legal counsel for one of the defendants.
Yeah.
In the first incident, one of the selected jurors encountered defense counsel. Defense counsel was alleged to have said something that the juror found inappropriate. This was reported back to the judge. The judge at that point had said, we can't move forward at this point, declared a mistrial. They elected to draw from that established juror pool. And then in the most recent incident where this previous jury was discharged, I think it was 2 jurors felt that this same member of the defense counsel and another member of defense counsel were potentially making light of the jury or of conversation.
Yeah. I mean,
And it was interpreted by 2 jurors as being a problem, and judge and counsel discussed how to move forward, and they agreed to have this trial based on judge alone. And that was to avoid the declaration of another mistrial, because if that were to, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I can't imagine, the woman who's gone through and was going through, brutal examination over the course of a number of days, having to do it again.
yeah. And
Right? Like, I can't begin to imagine how that would even be possible. So I am thankful
Yes.
for her regard that wasn't required. But
I mean, neither of us are lawyers, but I have spoken to people that are, and they thought all that they had been reading about the cross-examination of EM, the complainant in the case, was super inappropriate, and that rape shield laws should have protected EM from a lot of the lines of questioning that she underwent. So it's safe to say it was really brutal.
And on that note, I think I was listening to something, I want to say it was on CBC Radio. It might have been like possibly even on TV, but one of the sort of analysts, someone who works in the law profession, I can't remember if they were a lawyer or what have you, had said that in a situation where you have a jury, as a lawyer, you have to consider how placing an objection can be interpreted by the jurors. I mean, we are all human, and I am, you and I, we're not in the legal profession. And so how we perceive objections and how we interpret that can sometimes infer how we come to our own decisions and conclusions. And so the thought is that one of the reasons why some of the questions were not objected to were out of an overabundance of caution as to the perception of how this sort of a constant stream of objections could impact juror sentiment. But where you have a judge knows the law.
Yeah.
They are, performatively objective. And as a result, now if a lawyer were to place an objection, it is legal mechanics.
Yeah.
Without the emotional connection.
And the judge is in control of the courtroom, so, it's very much what they say goes, so you would think that, and maybe because the jury isn't there, maybe defense counsel feel like they have more leeway.
Well, I think the analyst was suggesting that is the case now, but prior to this, because the jury was still present when that cross-examination was taking place, why were more objections not presented? That's the thought. No one knows. At the end of the day, Crown Counsel isn't coming out and saying, here's why we did not do this or why we did that.
Yeah.
That does not occur. And a judge, and again, this is my understanding, a judge isn't going to interject on their own unless it's egregiously...
Right. And, I mean...
foul. And,
we may feel that way, but as far as the law goes, it might not express that. Some of the questions that EM had to put up with, and the way that any small inconsistency in her story was picked apart, given how, we're still learning, but how we understand trauma response after a traumatic event, and how a human being might act after that. Very ill-informed, I guess I would say, if we're putting the best light on it. But yeah, really pretty brutal questioning, and we just know that that's not going to be the case for the hockey players. We've already seen witnesses. Many inconsistencies come to light, but not be held in the same regard. Brett Howden? Is that his first name? Brett. Yes. Of the Vegas Golden Knights has just been given his testimony. Wears a suit to 82 games a year, but shows up to court in a hoodie. Yeah, and a lot of his inconsistencies came to light as to what he told Hockey Canada, what his text message said, and what he said in court.
His ability to recall and the recollections that he provided are
which the defense basically had to argue that he was really stupid, so as to not present him as perjuring himself. But yeah, it's hard to feel any sort of sympathy when he cries in court after what he's agreed to do. Literally, he agreed back in 2018, the Hockey Canada investigation, agreed to lie for his teammates. He said that already. He's reported that he saw the victim crying. He saw Mike McLeod hit her so hard that he was worried for her safety, and he left. Like, all of this has come to light, but yes, this is just his memory. Yeah, it's hugely frustrating, but it's not all that surprising. But yeah, I'm in such admiration over EM and what she's done.
Yeah. The trial is ongoing. It'll be interesting how it being judged by judge alone will impact.
Yeah.
And I don't...
It's hard because the judge is making calls right the way along, right? She is the one that decided that, like, the inconsistencies in testimony couldn't be, like, counted against Brett Howden. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's strange to me.
I do wonder if after all of this is said and done, what will happen regardless of verdict. Like, you have to consider the impact of the transition from jury to judge opens up an avenue of appeal, whether or not you're the Crown or one of the defendants.
Right.
And if it were to go to appeal and either side were successful, I'd have to imagine another trial could be what is ordered. Not a reversal of a decision,
right,
in so much as a change of verdict. Again, not a lawyer, stayed in a Holiday Inn Express once, which allegedly, based on a commercial from eons ago, makes one smart. I'm not that smart. And yeah, like, I don't know.
A lot of what I'm saying in my response is coming from like a place of logic, yes, and emotion, yes, but it's definitely not coming from a legal background. It's
But I share what I share there, because if, let's say, a decision is validated and a new trial is ordered, everything, like, does the Crown proceed? Does EM wish to go through this?
Yeah, I mean,
again,
it's already a huge ordeal. It's hard to think about, really, if after all this that nothing changes. But yes, obviously this is even more in the forefront because Adam Foote has been appointed the Canucks head coach, and his son.
And his son is one of the defendants.
Yeah. Has that been mentioned at all? Of course not. Has anyone asked about it? I wonder. Certainly not come to light that anyone's asked about it. But you'd have to think that if and when a decision is reached, they have to say something.
So I can't say I've paid close enough attention to any of the press conferences or interviews that Adam Foote has done. I do not recall a question being asked of him.
And maybe that's not considered appropriate for this time or place, but...
Adam Foote will provide no answer. I think the most you would get from him is a no comment or have no comment on that.
Yeah, like this is an ongoing trial, he might say.
But for me, it's the point that the question is asked.
100%.
Like, we know we won't get an answer. And in fact, honestly, I don't feel an answer would be appropriate.
Definitely not this time.
And that's, as a parent, I would not say a thing. And I will not demonize someone as a parent when their child is involved. I would hope that, internally, how you feel.
Yeah.
Is it best complicated?
Yes.
Complex?
Because
But
best
I
case
won't look at it.
scenario, it doesn't put any of the hockey players in a good light, even if whatever happens or whatever
But that's
did
where
happen.
the question does need to be asked, and maybe it has, and that's the thing. I have not paid close attention to any.
And
of the
I'm
press
not sure we would
conferences and it.
know necessarily, but yeah.
No, I think
If it was asked in a more one-on-one.
this is the same. So, granted, the person is no longer with us, but Botch brought up a question over an inappropriate comment made in a San Jose Sharks dressing room. And
Yeah.
when he caught heat for this, he defended it by saying, my job is to share what is provided to me,
Yeah.
ask tough questions, and pursue the follow-up. That is my job, whether it's appreciated or not. My job is to deal with the hard stuff. Now, not trying to draw a correlation between either of those situations, but what Botchford was saying is that the tough questions need to be asked because the job requires it of them. And he had said, if I did not do this, I should not have a job. And I look at the Vancouver media and I feel this question is pertinent. Simply if you get the no comment.
Yeah.
Ask, move on.
Because, and I've kind of said this repeatedly on the podcast, on social media, the sport is not a safe place for women. The media, I wonder, how the female reporters are moving through the world, given what's occurring. But, as a fan, as a staff member, and, we've seen what happened in New York with Panarin, and as a reporter, hockey is not a safe place for women, and I think any signal from male media members that they're aware of that and that they're trying to move forward in a more positive way would be appreciated, I think.
I agree. Anyhow, here we are, end of another episode. Been a couple of weeks, and a couple of weeks from now we'll be back. What's going on with us over the course of the off season? Anna and I have been reaching out to a few different people to see if we could get a couple of different voices that have not joined us in the past to join us to talk a little bit about the Vancouver Canucks, talk about hockey. Again, for us, we're a podcast that appreciates we are the best mediocre one. But we also always like to provide an opportunity for voices that I feel are maybe at times underrepresented or not showcased enough.
Yeah.
I'm proud that, and I sort of look back at, when I joined Canucks Hockey Blog, way back, we as a blog, and in those days, the vast majority of those who were blogging wanted to sort of get into that space, get into the media space, use it as a stepping stone. I liked how at CHB, we as a group wanted to help elevate and lift up those who did, but at the same time, be that place that celebrated that. And it's something that I feel that, we've done here on C4 over the years, is we've helped, provide an opportunity, an avenue. I'm going to say Chris Faber's success, there's a small iota, 1/1,000,000th of a percent.
Oh no, it's definitely it's all us. But yeah, no, for sure. I think we've had a lot of Botchford Project people on the show, different perspectives as well. Stuff like having Chanel Keenan on the show, I thought was really interesting. So, and talking about her work with diversity and inclusion and accessibility with the Kraken. So yeah, if there's a voice like that that's maybe out of left field,
we're not even out of left field, still on the bench.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's a roster player. Just tell us. We'd love to hear. Yeah, can't guarantee anything, but yeah, there might be someone out there that we're not thinking of that you'd like to hear from.
Hey, this is the same podcast that now has friend of the show Frankie Corrado on speed dial.
Yeah, love Frankie.
We should get friend of the show Frankie Corrado back.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Talk about the Leafs.
He's busy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but Anna, any final words this week?
I guess the football season's over. Came to a triumphant end for the Arsenal women, so I will say leave it just with the words North London forever.
In the words of my daughter, arms are not guns.
She's so
on behalf
smart.
of Anna,
So smart.
4603, myself, Chris at Light Force, and the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, which is not branded consistently anywhere, at the C4 Podcast on X, at the Real C4 Podcast on Threads, and C4podcast.com on Blue Sky. We out.